Get the audio recording going.
So that's back to early as possible.
And exit out of the YouTube so it doesn't echo.
BP 433 is wide open, but it doesn't start until 10 October.
Okay.
All right, can I go ahead and start? All right. I'd like to call this meeting to order, the Police Committee, Philomath, Oregon, April 18th, 2023 at 4 p.m. in the afternoon. Present today are City Manager Chris Workman, Councilors Ruth Causey and Diane Crocker, myself, Teresa Nielsen, Lieutenant David Gursky, and the Chief of Police, Ken Rubin. Our first order of business is approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting on February 14th?
So moved.
And a second?
I said it.
All right, moved by Councilor Causey and seconded by Councilor Crocker.
Oh, you're getting pretty good at that.
Oh, thank you so
You didn't
much.
mess it up once. That's pretty good.
And that for the first time, right?
That's pretty
That's
good.
right. It's that piece of that. It's sitting at the head desk. Can I just tell you, this is just a, no, I'm just kidding. We're on
We
camera.
were told you wanted us to make it like this, so you have to sit up there all by yourself.
Yeah, no.
No?
I'm not a center stage person. Anyway, before we get started on the printed agenda.
Point of order.
Yes.
We have to vote on the.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you gotta vote.
You did that on purpose, didn't you? Was
So I
that
wanted to see if I could
you
throw you
did?
off, but it worked.
It did. All right, we vote on approval of those minutes. All in approval?
Aye.
So indicate, thanks. It's unanimous. Minutes have been approved. May we now go on with the, okay. According to our last city council meeting, there was a proposal that a certain issue come before the police committee. I'm going to turn a few minutes over to Chris and then from there let Chief Rubin address an issue.
Yeah. So the council asked the police committee to look at the issue of sleeping in the city overnight, and specifically looking at locations, provisions. The city attorney's office is going to be providing some draft language for code changes to get us into compliance with current laws based on a recent lawsuit that was filed and decided. So that's when we come into the full council. Thought it'd be helpful to have that discussion at this committee. Chief Rubin's just coming off of a really nice Chiefs conference. So he tells me, where they talked quite a bit of this topic, so I thought it'd be helpful to get his insights as well. We can start with that. We can add it onto the agenda and hit to it after we hit through the other stuff. How we'd like to proceed. But I do think it'd be good to talk about tonight.
I think based on the urgency of this matter, and I think maybe we should consider it maybe first.
Sure, no, absolutely, you
All
bet.
right.
And I'll just turn to Ken then to kind of talk through it a little bit. Primarily, again, we're looking at, there's the overall premise, people have a constitutional right to rest, right, to sleep. It's a basic right that's been determined by state courts, federal courts. People have a right to sleep someplace. A city cannot restrict people from sleeping within that city, but the route that most city attorneys, county attorneys are going is that if you can designate a place where people can sleep when they're there, then you can preclude them from sleeping in other places. So it's kind of a time, place, manner restriction on allowing that. We don't have to have camps get established. We don't have to allow people to, sleep wherever they want to sleep, in the storefronts, in our parks, wherever. But we do have to provide a place where an individual could sleep. I was very clear with the city council, and I'll be clear again, we're not talking about homeless people specifically, we're talking about anybody. So whether they're homeless, whether they're passing through, whether they're a teenage son, which was the example I gave at the council meeting, regardless of who the individual is, we're not targeting individuals, we're talking blanket policy. We need to provide a place where a person could sleep overnight, and in order to have places where we don't want people to sleep overnight. And there's some public safety issues there. There's some health concerns there. And I do just want to be clear, we're really talking about helping the city get in our current code, our current municipal code, in line with new law that's come out through these lawsuits, right? We're not talking about additional services that we could provide, additional nonprofits that we could support, any type of efforts to help homeless people or people that are experiencing homelessness or people that are on the fringe of homelessness. We're not talking about housing even generally. Those are discussions we can have for another time, but right now the real focus is on getting our code into compliance with state law. And I know that's a low bar, but that's the bar we need to at least get over that bar right now. So that's kind of the focus right now. So all of that said, I think it'd be helpful to hear from Chief Rubin on recommendations for location, do's and don'ts, things that he's learned in talking to other police chiefs throughout the state.
All
Am I
right.
on the floor?
You have the floor, sir.
All right, I'll start off with some controversial comments. Number one, I'll say some things that, and everything I say here, I can prove. And I'll just start off by saying that. Number one, I just want to go on the record and say we do not have a homeless problem in Paloma. As we sit here and speak right now, there's not a single person living on a street or in a tent in the city limits of Philomath. And I can think of, on one hand, over the last 9 years, how many people are living in that fashion right now. Now, that doesn't mean there's not people couch surfing, having monetary problems, living with family, those kind of things that people get services. So, and I attribute a lot of that to we have a very good, robust law about people camping in cars, about people, camping in parks and all those things that have allowed us to keep a check on that. Because, like it or not, and this is the controversial part, homeless, if you provide numerous services for homeless people, they will come. And I will, on record, blame Corvallis for that. I live in that city. They have a tremendous amount of services. And if you look back over time, the amount of homeless services that they have is equal to how many homeless people have come from all over the country to live there. And you don't even see a tenth of where they are. I can drive you to places you would be absolutely shocked in town. You don't see it from the streets where their homeless camps are, where our guys are regularly going to arrest people that have committed crimes in here because the people come here on the bus, commit a crime, go back. So all that being said, I want to get that on the record. Number two, I get the reasons for the law. I'm good with that. I understand. My fear is that, and I'm saying this out loud too, there are groups, political action committees, nonprofits that make a living off of homeless issues. And it's funny that, you printed this article about the drug stuff. There's a great thing that Dave and I watched about Portland, where they did an undercover operation where these homeless advocates are getting tents and bringing people from out of state in, and they get paid by how many people they house in free tents that they get. So I'm fearful that this is going to happen. This is what we learned at the chiefs meeting, talking to other chiefs, is that when you set up a place, if you don't have a homeless problem, but your neighboring city does, it's, hey, our area here is full. Philomath's got a spot. You can get on the bus and ride over to Philomath. They've got a spot for you to sleep tonight. And that happens. I'm just saying it out loud. That actually happens in many cities in Oregon. I'm fearful of that. So that's my controversial part. I'm cool with it. I'm cool with the idea of finding a place. What I don't want to become, and this is what all the chiefs are complaining about, is when you set up a program like this, you got to look at the unintended consequences. Number one, if we have an 8 to 8 time frame and the guys are put some tents up, whose job is it to make sure that the tents go down, that the place gets cleaned, that the people get moved on the way, get woken up, they're under the influence of drugs, they're needles, all the stuff that goes with it? Well, that falls on the police. And what these kind of things create are unintended police contacts that often become confrontational. You're waking me up. I am not getting up. I don't want to open my tent. Well, that tent, the minute somebody sets up the tent, all the rules apply to your house. We can't unzip the tent, open the tent, and get somebody out. That has been deemed basically an intrusion of privacy. So what you do, the problem with this that I'm having is that we're going to have a little spot, and if everybody's playing by the rules, that's great. That's the panacea. Everybody's happy. But as we all know, that's not what happens. And I could point to you all day long to all the statistics that we get from Corvallis PD about how many contacts they have. They have 6 full-time officers. 6 full-time officers. All they do is it's their community livability program is to manage, not arrest, not do investigations, to manage the homeless population in Corvallis. A lot of people don't know that. 6 full-time police officers at $150,000 a position. But that's not paid. I'm talking about everything. So that's scary to me. All that being said, I mean, Chris, I think is 100% right. I wasn't hot on the first location. I know that there's several police agencies that in Oregon had set up a location near the police department. And what happened was the bad guys were seeing officers' personal cars coming and going. Personal cars were being vandalized. And then the worst part about it is they see the police cars coming and going. Well, when we have one car on duty, and if the homeless camp was in view of our office and they see the police car come in to write reports, their free phone that they get from the government, they call a buddy that's on the other side of Philomath at your house or your house or your house. Hey, the cops are at the office. You're free to go until I call you when I see them leave. So the surveillance of police vehicles coming and going from the office is a problem. So that was, just operationally, that was my first conversation I had with Chris, and he totally agreed that that's something we need to think about. Second, so the other locations that I'm really against are parks. I think when you set a park in motion, you have all those problems, like inviting other people to come over, tents being set up, then you have the whole camping issue, you have potential, we have parks for a reason. If you come early in the morning, if you're up early, people are out walking, they have kids, they're out walking their dogs, and I think it's dangerous. It would, in my opinion, need additional security for us to be at the parks in the morning and in the evenings when people are walking around to make sure, because these people aren't just sitting in their tents and that's it. They're out and about. They're often criminals, or they are criminals most of the time. And it would be, to me, I think it's a community safety issue. I don't think it's a good idea to have them in a park. Then you got issues with they're using the bathroom in the park for showers. They're doing drugs in the bathrooms. All the things that you've heard in Corvallis. And if you guys ever want for one of these meetings, I can have one of the community like Dodge or one of the guys come and talk. And I am understating it, and I'm not joking with you what the issues are there. Okay, so the large camp that they have right now is behind Home Depot. Do you know, on average, the shoplifting value at Home Depot is every day $3,100 loss a day at Home Depot. A day.
It's not higher.
But think about the dollars there, and I'll tell you a story some other time about something that happened recently. It's a pretty funny story about a shoplifter. But so those are my concerns. I think Chris is right on. We have a couple spots in town. I know it doesn't seem like the best place to have a tent or to sleep, but I think if we're going to get into have a spot, I think the spot at 14th and Main or 20th and Main, or 14th and Main and 20th and Main are the best spots. My preference is the 14th and Main, just because of proximity to housing. Dave and I drove over and we looked at 20th and Main. I mean, there's issues there. You're right by 2 different apartment complexes, some houses. You walk between the houses north and you're at the church, property on Applegate. That's not the best spot, but it is. I think we need to have a couple alternative spots. If there's something going on in town, that we can move it if we need to, if we have some kind of activity going on, or like the Memorial Day, thing that Chaz does. I mean, you don't want to have a camp at 14th and Main at the time when something like that's going on. But I mean, to me, there's no win-win here other than having a spot. I would just think it'd be a disaster doing it at a park. Corvallis have had problems with guys setting up tents at parks, and then they have lawyers that come and say, wait a minute, now this is their residence, you have to evict them. When they've played, if you've watched the city council meetings and all the minutes, it's this game of, okay, we're going to be here for 3 days while we litigate this, and then at the end of 3 days, we're going to move over to here, this park, and then they're going to play the same game. So parks, plus I just don't think we have the staff, people cleaning the parks, cleaning the restrooms, all those things that all that brings. Cleaning up needles, making sure there's no needles around in the playground. If you look at the city park, where the kids play is 10 feet away from those bathrooms. So I could go on and on. What do you guys, I'm just ranting now, but what's your guys' thoughts of what things that you maybe you've considered and want an opinion on from us?
Well, couple of things with respect to 14th and Main. One of the concerns that was raised, or with any specific location, is that this people would be targeted by other people.
Okay.
And one of the questions I asked was, if we designate a location, do we have to post it? And
I don't know what the new rules are. I think those are all up in the air right now. I think you don't as of right now.
The answer I was given was no.
Here's my thought about 14th and Main, and this is why, especially at night, we drive by that 500 times a night. I mean, that is the route. That is when the guys are driving around patrolling, they drive by that spot all night long. I mean, over and over and over and over again. And so my thought was, I mean, if somebody were to target them, you're much more likely to be targeted in a place that's secluded. If you're camping in the corner of any of the parks or down by the river, it would be much easier for 4 or 5 teenagers to go down there and mess with some people camping in a tent down at City Park or down on the river park. So, but it has to be relegated to city-owned property. That's one of the, so there's not that, we thought originally, is there any spots up on like industrial, but we don't have any city land up there. So, and it'd be funny, is what I say, funny, haha, but the last time I can remember a tent was up at the dead end of, and remember when they had that one guy, that was that guy, the same guy that came up by you, same guy, we dealt with a guy up there. But that's, I don't look at that guy as a homeless guy. There's a lot of other reasons. That's a whole other story, but.
That's why he's living out of a truck bed camper out at the dead end of Industrial Way.
Yep.
And he was there for quite a while.
Yep.
He was able to kind of move along. But
yeah, that's his thing was, that was one of those ones where that's when we first started, like, how much does it cost to tow somebody? He did my thing's broken down, but we found out it wasn't. But it was a game that he was playing with Corvallis because they booted him out. He was living on Spruce over behind Walmart. I don't know if you guys see, that's one of the rotation spots.
Yes.
Sometimes you go there, there'll be 20 of them, then they're gone,
Mhm.
and they'll be moved over to another spot. But he finally left, but it's cost $4,000 for us to tow a motorhome because of the EPA, because it's got a restroom in it. So it's considered hazardous waste if we tow it. But we've towed 2 over the last two or 3 years where people, they just would not move them. And it's an absolute, it's a mess. I'm dealing with those. I mean, the outside part. Do you guys ever go over by, where the little spot is over by Home Depot, the street in between? What's this street? Is that Riles? The one that by Republic? What's the name of that street? Is that Riles? I always get them because there's those 2 side streets. That street where they have where you can dump like cardboard and stuff right there.
Yeah.
That's the other spot. I mean, just recently they did a cleanup there. I think it cost them $8,000 or $9,000 to clean up all the needles and stuff all along that causeway there. The expense to a city when you have stuff like that is people don't see the hidden expense of cleaning up and the hazmat cleanup and those kind of things. It's not good. But all right, that's the police view. I mean, we all, like, human wise, you say, okay, we want to do something right here, but it's like the drug issue. There's a lot of unintended consequences, and then you're inviting police contact, and then people are going to complain when we have to go out and move somebody and we get in a fight with somebody, and then somebody goes to jail because we get in a fight with somebody, all because they don't want to leave the tent in the morning. It's because 8 o'clock in the morning are we really going to be the ones that have to go knock on the tents? Time to go, guys, wake up. Yes, that's what happens. And you end up being the homeless police, just by statute. That's going to happen.
And what about those businesses? The businesses near 14th, most of them are, small businesses, owned, operated by the person there. And what about their business and their clients, and I'm thinking about the safety and the goings on of things there near 14th.
I don't have a good answer. There's no answer there. I have no magic pill to say, oh, it's going to be perfect and nothing's going to happen. And are we going to park a police car there every morning and make sure that these guys get on their way? I mean, these are expenses that the city's going to have to recognize. And do we want to do that? Do we want to be the babysitters? No. So, I mean, it is what it is. If you put it at 20th, you got two small apartment complexes, you got Dairy Queen, you got across the street from, you're right across the street from a bunch of other businesses. And if you get to the point where they know they're going to sleep there at night, what are they going to do during the day? Are they going to walk across the street and sit in front of a human being until 8 o'clock at night, like they do in other cities? That's what's going on in Medford. That whole parking lot right by the In-N-Out is, you go to the parking lot at the mall, there's 30 people over there waiting so they can go to their spot at 8 o'clock. So they've developed a little day camp to wait for their nighttime freebie that you can't mess with me because I'm on King Zach's city property for 12 hours. So those are all the Ken Rubin bad. So the city manager is the one that comes in and smooths out what the police chief says. So, yeah, so
I have a couple comments to follow up.
Yeah.
I do think, Ken makes a lot of good points. However, I do think that we want to be a little bit careful, and this is where I started, is it's hard to broad brush stroke, and nobody's really doing this. And Ken's seeing the worst of the worst of the worst, right? And that's what we're seeing is the worst. There are bad players, right? Not everybody that is homeless is down on their luck, out of work, lost their job, bankrupt through a medical thing that happened, and now they're bankrupt, and now they're on the street.
By the way, the last survey was 4%. 4% of people are falling into that.
Right.
I'm out of my luck. I've lost my job, and I'm living in a car until I find a job.
4% systems.
4% is
4% of
four.
homeless,
Yes.
and the rest are.
Drug addiction, long-term drug addiction, bad life choices, all the alcohol abuse, all the different things. They've been living like that for a long time, have been given housing before, no longer qualify, have been arrested, paroled. They've gone out of their debits for, living in, free, housing, all those things. So
the humanity in all of us, when we say homelessness and people that are homeless or houseless that don't have a house currently, we want to think of that 4%, right? We want to think of somebody who's down on their luck, that needs a hand up, needs some help, and we want to be there for them. We want to provide them assistance. We want to give them food. We want to make sure their basic needs are being met, make sure they're comfortable. I personally am not a big fan of giving sleeping bags and tents. I'd rather give them a place to live, right, and help them get on their feet so they can get on their feet and move on their way. But as Ken's saying, that's 4%. The other 96% they're not good players, right? They're not, and I don't say playing the game, they're not living in a way that they're making good choices to want to be helped. You have people that are bad players. They're bad actors, right? They are looking out for themselves. They're trying to get the best that they can. They're trying to live for free. They're not wanting to provide to society. They want to take. And they're, for whatever reason, there's choices that they're making, or there's situations they're in that lead to areas that aren't safe in a society, right? So drug use, the other things that happen in a lot of those camps where there aren't police presence, and that just kind of general civility isn't there. And again, when you're talking about homeless people and people that are living homeless, there is a range, right? And so it's not 4%, 96%. You got the 4% statistic, they're down the luck. Everybody's in that different category, right? And I always look at it from my perspective. All of them have a mother, have a father, have somebody who loves them, who maybe doesn't know where they are, or is, just heartbroken every single night that their child is in that situation that they're in, right? I hope that none of my children ever get to a situation where they are homeless. And if they do get to that point, I hope that I am a resource that can try to help them out. That's not a resource that a lot of people have. I get that, right? I totally recognize that. Not everybody has those resources. But the side that from the city's perspective we look at is, I think, that social perspective, right? Like, what is it that these camps, when these camps come and get established, what are the actual outcomes that come from these camps? And that's where Ken and David will tell you all day long that there's a lot of negative things that come from these camps. It's not something desirable. It's not something that we want in the city. right? Do we want to help people that are down on their luck? Do we want to help people with food? Do we want to help people, with basic necessities? Do we want to help people have shelter, a safe place to sleep? Absolutely, we do, right? That's the humane thing to do, and we all want to do those things. At the same time, we don't want to create an environment where there's lawlessness, where there's criminal activity taking place, where criminal activity is encouraged. And again, statistically speaking, that's where our officers are going to be spending their time. That's not fair to the rest of the community, that we're all paying taxes for law enforcement who are spending 90% of their time dealing with a handful of people that are in an area because they've chosen a certain lifestyle through one way or another, through lack of resources on their own or otherwise. For whatever reason they're there, it doesn't mean that the rest of the community should have to pay for those life choices, right? And so as much as we want to help them on an individual level, from a city level, we really need to be looking out for what's in the best interest of the city and the community as a whole. And I think that's where we're getting at. So again, I think that when we're looking at what the city is going to do, the city is going to find a place where if somebody is needing a place to sleep, I'm tired, I need a place to sleep. Doesn't matter if you're, when the police encounter somebody who's intoxicated, if they're just intoxicated, not causing anybody trouble, there's a place to go and sleep, right? If you're intoxicated and you're breaking the law because you're, causing a nuisance, causing disorderly conduct, stealing things, whatever you're doing, defecating on the sidewalk, well, those are crimes, right? And so then that's treated differently. But if you're just on the street, you're in a park and you're sleeping and the police are called out or the police encounter you, they need to have a place that they can point you to, right? Hey, you can't sleep here, you can sleep here. That's kind of where we're dealing with. So I agree with Ken on 14th and Main. I think that, having the officers available to people that are there should something happen, if people come start harassing them, if there's troubles in that area itself, that the police are, in close enough proximity, they've got some eyes on it, I think it's helpful. My hope is that this will continue to be as big of an issue as what it's been currently, right? Is people pass through, it's not a big deal. You're going to have maybe a tent there a few times a year, and it's not going to be that big of a deal. And it won't be an eyesore. They will be up and on their way the next morning. We're going to spend a little bit of time making sure that they're gone, and that'll be it. My fear is we're going to get bleed over from other communities, and that once we establish a location, 14th and Main, that we're going to wake up the next morning and we're going to have 30 tents there.
But I mean, the whole objective of this is to prevent cities from moving you from their city to someone else's city. So how do you police that though? How do you, if there's 50 people camped in Corvallis, and right now there's probably 750, how do you, if they're not manageable and they say, hey, move along, how do you keep them from saying go to Philomath? But that's what I'm saying, is that this situation is supposed to prevent you. I know that. From saying. But we I won't get into the who's, but we've had people drop homeless people off from Corvallis at the liquor store. I mean, at our convenience store before. And because they're causing a problem over there and they get dropped off here. That's what, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not saying I know it's going to happen, but I'm just telling you that everything I'm telling you right now is just a law enforcement perspective. You guys have to make the rules. I'm just telling you that I'm listening to my other police chiefs, and this is in some small towns, which is really bad. Larger towns, if Corvallis wants to spend $500,000 and hire 5 guys to police homeless people, and that's how they think how to fix the problem, fine. I have no, but Philomath is not going to hire 2 extra cops to police the city's homeless problem. If we end up getting one because of overflow from a nearby city, let's be frank, they invite homeless people to the area. They have services, they have nonprofits that are there making money to house homeless people, period. That's just facts. I'm worried about that as the police chief of this town. Now, I may be completely wrong. I hope I'm wrong, and I hope Chris is right, that we have a very spotty, very small turnover. If that's the case, fine. But then you get into all the other things that the city attorney brings up. We're allowing somebody to sleep on city property. What's our responsibility if they do something wrong? They're a tenant now for 12 hours.
Can we contact them and ask them if we know that they're a bad guy and they just got out of prison, can we run their name to find out if they're wanted? Can we ask them for identification or not? Yes or no? Can we find out if they're a sex offender and notify local residents of that? All those answers have yet to be think. But I can tell you now, the cops that we know that deal with these guys know that goes on. And there's apartment complexes, and we see 4 guys in a tent, and we know 2 of them are ex-cons, 1 of them is a sex offender. What's our responsibility? There's a lot of things that bleed over from just this mere little, the guy's sleeping in a tent. If they get in a fight or they assault a passerby, and we've let them sleep on the city property, what's our liability? We're letting them sleep there, even though it's a state law. I mean, it's like, so I think there's a lot of unanswered questions, and like we were talking about when we pass rules and laws of what those consequences are, we don't know yet. And those are things that are concerning to us. Who are we dealing with? If we're having to wake somebody up and the guy in the tent is a bad guy, that's putting the officers in a bad spot to rouse somebody up when they're not happy to move them along. Yeah.
I have several questions. Okay. Do you know where Corvallis is giving land that's approved for them to sleep overnight?
Their proposal, believe it or not, is directly, the last I heard, unless Dave's heard something different, is that, what do they call it, the plot? I was trying to remember the name. It's the plaza. You know, City Hall is?
Yes.
The area, if you walk straight out the front doors, there's like this little little kind of entry street, but then there's like this little concrete area right there.
Without traffic.
Right in there.
Yeah. Interesting.
Which is, to be quite, I think it's funny because I laugh about it because the law is going to make the city designate a spot, but I could take you to 5 spots right now where there's over 100 of them.
Yeah.
So it doesn't affect them like it's affecting us because we're starting one from scratch. They've got spots that they do the shell game around with these people. I mean, I drove by the other day and all of a sudden there's like a whole bunch of tents by the dog park that they moved out from underneath the thing. And then you go down behind Home Depot and there's like a gigantic tent city back there, you know. So day to day, I don't know where their spots are. So.
Field.
Yeah, Pioneer Field down below and back.
Yeah.
You go back. Would you send your kid on a bike back behind there, like your little, no.
But my kids have
Yeah, I know.
no reason to go
I
there.
know.
So that's not a concern of mine.
Yeah, but our concern is exactly that. I mean, if it was in a park, would we want kids playing in the park in the mornings, in the summer? No. So, but anyway, go ahead. What was your second?
Lots of things. Anyway, I know that there's a lot of community members that feel very similar to yourself, people that would like to take the law into their own hands. And if we had a place right on Main Street, which is what we're proposing, I think that's a recipe for disaster. I love the idea of understanding you can certainly do patrols. They're easier. And I understand that concept. But I think McDonald's and Chevron and Pioneer Telephone, they're all around that, and not one of them is going to be happy. And all they have to do is stir up a few of our citizens.
Well, I guess the answer would be, what's the alternative? Do you put them in a park where?
I have an alternative, and I don't even think it works. But PCS South, there's a big field. I guess it's waterlogged most of the time. Raise it up and put people there, and then we can have mental health counselors there, an hour a day or whatever to help. I have been more involved in the homeless than some people, and I do have a heart for people, and my research has shown me that 1/3 of the people are mentally ill, 1/3 are drug addicts, and 1/3 are economically disadvantaged. They can have a job, for goodness sakes, getting minimum wage, and they can't afford to live anywhere in this area. They can have a job, and some of them have gone to jobs, but having a job and no place to shower, no place to wash your clothes, there's a men's shelter that can do some of that, but it's difficult. And so many of my friends or acquaintances, people I work with, say they should just get a job. And to get a job, you need to have an address, a phone number, clean clothes, and be able to get there. And so I have a little bit, I don't have answers. I am concerned about it being in front. I do think there are some good people. That you say all criminals are they're all criminals most of the time.
That's not what I said.
What did you say?
Okay, what I said was the ones that police deal with on a regular basis are because of a crime.
Okay,
Okay, so,
that's not what I understood you to say.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Because there are some families with new babies that just can't afford to rent.
I would disagree with you there. We've been through those camps. I've never seen a family there that is what you would consider down on your luck. At least the camps that I've now, there's a difference between the camps like the ones I'm talking about, like behind Home Depot down on the river,
Yep.
and like the ones that churches are sponsoring, or they have the little homes and stuff like that. That's a lot different ballgame. The little place, like that place on, what's that street? It's on West Hills, where they have, and the church, they're monitoring, they have
Yes.
security there, they're providing food, and they're inviting a particular clientele there that they believe, and they will only go there if they're going to treatment, and they have a family situation, or they have a job and they're trying to make ends. I think that's a different ballgame than what most people see. And I think many people that are involved in this or go to soup kitchens like I have with my church, you're not seeing what we're seeing. You're seeing the people that are I don't want to use the word want to be seen, but are coming out that
They're rough. Absolutely,
that's a different,
they're rough.
different
I've
crowd.
been under the overpass helping feed.
Mhm.
I've done that a few
Yeah.
times. I've got a friend that does that. He has helped a family with a young child that were living out of an beat-up old RV. They had no place to live. They were disentangled with their families. They didn't have family support. He was able to, I think, find some help for them.
Yeah.
But
And I think, and I don't want to get in a big debate over this, but
no,
there's a lot of services for
Yeah.
families
Yeah.
that don't have a place.
Yeah.
You go over right now behind Sherry's, the apartment, the hotel behind there, which used to be the Days Inn. That you know what? That's full of homeless. You don't realize that, right? Did you know that?
I thought the one south of town was the one
Well,
that
that one.
was
The last-
purchased.
They moved it. Well, but the one that they're putting people in now is the one right behind.
Yeah.
That used to be. I don't even know if they call it the Days Inn anymore, but it's the
Yeah.
Days Inn.
Yeah.
That's where the county and state services has put people that are the groups that you're talking about.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, that's right.
Anyway,
So there's programs for that.
I totally think this is a difficult situation. I wish I had some great answers. I do think from my experience with John and the people that feed, that if there were dumpsters, porta potties, and a hand washing station, that they might clean up after themselves and not leave a mess behind.
Yeah, I disagree with you. But that's another argument to be had somewhere. That's not why I'm here to talk to you about that. But I think that's just not true. Because the places that I've been to that have those, that cities try to do that, it's an absolute disaster. But I don't want to get in an argument with you because I'll win.
No.
But I'm all for private citizens and churches or whoever. That if you want to take that on, the place that tried to take it on when I was in Boy Scouts was the Corvallis, the Baptist church right down across from City Hall, and that's where they used to have Narcotics Anonymous for years. It became a disaster. They had hand washing stations out there, and it was fights and drug use and needles being found, and then the church people, it got down to where all the people quit the church because they didn't want to go there anymore, and it was a mess. And that was the big church, the stone soup for years, and I worked right down there, and it got to be a gigantic mess. But that's, I am all for private organizations doing all that. I just don't know if a city.
Right.
Okay, so that's what we're talking about here, right?
I
I'm coming from the police view
Right.
of public safety, and are we inviting with programs people that aren't here now to come here for those programs, and what's that scope? So that's decisions you guys have to make, not me. I'm just giving you the police view of what I can foresee problems being, which we'll deal with when we come, but I don't think people are going to like it. I think bad things are going to happen. And what I don't want is a year from now, when I'm retired and Dave's the chief, you come into Dave and saying, why did you guys get in a fight with that guy? Why did you have to evict him out of that tent? He's just a poor soul that wanted to sleep overnight. And we're trying to move somebody along, and the guy says, F you, and the fight's on, which will happen. And then somebody's going to be coming to us of why the jackbooted cops are trying to move somebody off the city property, which, but that's what that's what happens, right?
Two more quick
Okay.
things. I also, my reasoning for the 14th and Main is it's not a very large space. I think
Yep.
the more you compound the number of people in a small space, the more you're going to have trouble with fighting, and between them and between you and them, I think that's an issue. The second thing was I was up in Forest Grove, Oregon, a couple of months ago, and I noticed no homelessness in the city. And I thought, wow, because I was kind of on the lookout, and then I found it. And it was a forested area, just, I would say, half a mile outside the city. They had put up porta potties, garbage, and hand washing station, but you could almost not see them from. Now, that's a nightmare to patrol. I get that, but as a visitor to the city and as a person that lives in the city, I would think that would be better than having it on Main Street.
So I'll offend you right now. So you just want to hide it?
No,
Okay.
I would love to fix it, but I
I
can't
know.
do that.
I don't have the
an
answer either.
Yeah,
And I've had these arguments. We've gone round and round about, as a city, what do you do here? And what I hear from businesses in town when I'm out talking about is we don't want people camping in our parking lots. We want to be able to run a business. We don't want a camper
Yeah.
with some guys out in it that are dangerous for our customers. We don't want people sleeping behind our business, and when we open up our door, there's a guy sleeping there and he's defecated. Like my wife is the manager of apartment complex right across from Central Park. It's sad that they have to have security when the employees come to work in the morning because they're fearful that that two women going into their business in the morning are going to get assaulted. It sucks. But
Absolutely.
we've been lucky that, I say lucky, it's multiple reasons, but our crime rate is very low. We haven't had a big problem here. There's a lot of reasons for that, but that's my fear. We can't change it now. There's a state law. We're going to have to do this.
We have to follow.
And we have to figure out a way to do it in the most efficient way and carrying way as we can. And that's why I don't want to see a disaster happen at a park or something bad happen, or set up a camp that we're going to basically say, here's this great spot, come one, come all. This is why we're setting up this great place. Come, this is a great place for you to come. I don't think we should set it up to invite people. But I don't live in this town. I'm only the police chief.
Well, we need to find a safe place that's going to mitigate the risk to the public and the community. At the end of the day, that's my fear about the natural areas and the parks. Our kids use them, and sometimes those kids are unsupervised in the evening in the summertime. They go down and swim at the river, and then they walk back. And so if they stay a little bit too late and some of these camps get set up in those natural areas of those parks, there's a huge risk there.
Yeah. Well, it's like you don't see what's sad, and what the Corvallis cops will tell you, all the places that we went 20 years ago, Avery Park and all these places, there's no families there anymore. The families don't let their little 3-year-olds run around, out there like it used to be when my kids were small. It's sad.
On the dinosaur bones.
Yeah, on the dinosaur bones, that's the one spot. But you get back behind in the back part of the park, and you go down. There's bad actors back in there, and there's camps all along back in there, and it's just Pioneer Park. You can't go to Pioneer Park anymore. Pioneer Park is a disaster. That's sad. But we have to do this, and I think we're not going to make the decision on how to do it perfectly. We're going to have to make changes as we go and adjust and be flexible and try to come up with really good enforcement tools. I just, I hate the thought of just, okay, Jim, it's 7:30. We're getting done with briefing. Can you go wake up all the homeless guys and get them off the property? And we're not sending a guy by himself. And it's Dave and I are the day shift guys with the I hate that thought of it. It sucks. I'm just being honest with you guys.
And nobody is going to want to get up at 7 and pack up all their gear. And
I know.
They like to build a camp in one spot.
I know.
So
I'm just looking at the reality of what physically is going to happen at those different times. That's what I'm hoping It's like what Chris says, I'm hoping that if we do it right and we enforce the rules, it becomes a place where, we're not, oh, come on, everybody from the coast over here, we got this great spot. I hope that doesn't happen to this town. It's a small town, and if you had 20 homeless people in this town, I'm talking just a small amount, 20 people, it would be, and I keep using the word disaster, it would be bad. 20 homeless people in town all the time, all day, going to, hanging out wherever, going into businesses, getting free stuff, shoplifting, all those things that you don't want to see in a small town. That's my fear. That's it. So.
Just a quick story. I think I'd only been here about a year, and Rocky Sloan was the Mayor Sloan, and we just finished up, maybe a year and a half, we just finished up with the Kugler shelter, and we'd established very small list of organizations that could use the Kugler shelter at no cost, right? A very small number of organizations. And lo and behold, first group came in, they wanted to use it, and they wanted to get it for free. And we said, well, you can't. You go to the council and ask. When the council set the policy, they can override their policy. So they came. I think it was the Lilies Lope for Hope that wanted to use it, right? Great organization, great effort, right? So they came to the city council meeting, sure enough, and asked if they could get the shelter donated for no cost. And Rocky looked at me and said, well, it's our policy. Well, the council just approved this policy a few months ago, and here's the organizations that could get it for free, and they're not one of the organizations, regardless of how great an organization they are. But the council can change the rules if you want to change the rules. Rocky said, well, I think we need to uphold the rules. And that council voted to not give them free use of the park, and then they voted on it, and then Rocky reached in his wallet, pulled out $50 and said, here, I'll pay for your reservation. And he paid for it. And I think that's kind of where I see this a little bit, is that as individuals, I think there's a role that we can all play in helping people that are down on their luck. But I don't necessarily think it's the city's job as a city government that's looking at providing, municipal services in a cost-effective way, in a way that supports our taxpayer dollars. I don't know that the city is the best entity to be taking care of the homelessness issue and providing a place for people to stay and providing an ear for people to listen to and providing, social services for these folks. I just don't think that that's necessarily the government at the city of Philomath level. That's where our forte is, right? We do great at providing water and sewer, and our streets are getting better. We do great at providing public service, public safety. That's a forte, and I really do think that on this issue, we need to really step back and look at what is the appropriate level for the city to be involved. And if that is making sure that people have a safe place, or the police are where they're at, yeah, it's not going to be the Days Inn, right? But it's going to be a place where if you're tired, so tired that you got to roll out a bag and sleep on it, you're probably not too concerned about how many trees are around and how soft the grass is. You're just tired, you just need to sleep, right? So if we can provide people a safe place to sleep and then get up and be on their way the next day, I think that's a good thing that we can do, rather than what our current code says, that we push them on their way, say, hey, you can't sleep here, you got to leave. And we don't tell them where they can go. We just say, you can't be here, you just have to leave. Well, the Constitution, as interpreted by recently, says we have to give them a place to stay, right? We have to give them a place that they can sleep. So I think we need to meet the letter of the law. I think we need to, find a place that's going to be safe, where they can get to sleep, regardless of their background, regardless of their future, and that we need to have faith in our nonprofit organizations, our church organizations, our faith-based organizations, and individuals, that they're going to wrap their hands around and take care of those individuals. But it's not necessarily the city's job to do that. We don't have the resources. I just don't think that the city is the one that's going to have the heart all the time. And there's individuals in the city that obviously can do that, like in the example I just gave with the mayor. But I think the city's role from a municipal standpoint is to meet state regulations, meet the state law, and then rely on our citizens to have the heart and to do a little bit more.
I have a question about the law. It talks about rural churches can open up their parking lots for 3 cars or whatever. But that doesn't mean anybody in town, correct?
That's right.
So that's only like Blodgett Community Church, not Peace Lutheran down here. It would be out of the city limits. Is that what we understand?
So unincorporated Benton County, past that, there's actually a state law that allows for that if it's approved by the jurisdiction. The county, as a jurisdiction of the county, has approved that. City of Philomath has not adopted that, but we could look at provisions of the code that would allow for churches, per state law, would allow for churches to house people in their vehicles, provide tiny homes. There's a number of provisions in there that allow that. Larger cities with larger populations are required to do it. Smaller cities weren't required to do it, but could voluntarily do that. So that is an option of something that we could do, where we would, again, we could allow for churches to do that, and we would trust that churches that wanted to would be able to do that, and that would help. Right now, you get situations where the government's allowing something to take place, but we're not the ones doing it, right? We're not responsible to provide the housing, provide the shelter. But
Sorry, I have so many
so
questions.
the church is good.
I also recall it saying people can sleep in the parks during the day. Is that right?
Anybody can
Technically,
anybody can sleep in the park. during the day,
Okay,
yes.
so well, if we have these transient people that are sleeping during the day, what are they doing at night? I'm just thinking that's promoting more crime than, I don't know. I know we can't control, but that seems
Well,
odd to
the
me.
reason they can sleep in the park during the day is because the parks are open during the day. Our parks close at dusk. And so they're closed to everybody, not just homeless people, they're closed to everybody at dusk. And so, everybody's supposed to leave the parks at dusk, whether you're sleeping or playing kick the can or whatever you're doing, right? So, yeah, walking your dog, right? But obviously, some of that gets enforced and it's complaint driven, et cetera, right? But the law is parks are closed at dusk, everybody needs to be out of the parks. But during the day, I sometimes take an extended lunch, I'll go down to the park, find a little spot and take a little nap. That's highly acceptable. I think the example Catherine gave Monday night is you do the same thing in the library, right? If I'm passing through town and I'm homeless or I'm not from the area, or I'm truly homeless and I live in my tent back behind Home Depot, I can hop on the bus, come to Philomath and go to the library during the day. I can sit in a chair, I can read books, or I take a little nap, and wake up and go on my way. And I haven't broken the law. I haven't done anything wrong, right? But if I'm going to pitch my tent there, or I'm going to sleep overnight, or I'm going to, refuse to leave when the door closes, and say, no, I like this couch, I'm staying for the night. Well, now you're past the area, right? Because it's time, place, manner. The library is now closed, you need to go. And I think if we found that our library was full of 30 people who decided to come over from behind Home Depot and hang out in the library for the entire day, and there wasn't room for our youth and our Philomath residents to hop on a computer to check out books and all that because it was overwhelmed by people from out there, I think the library would look for some provisions to not have to provide services only to those same 30 individuals, we'll say, then not provide services to everybody else in town, right? Just like any other service. So there are time, place, manner restrictions in place. And again, I go back to where I started, which is there is a distinction. I think from the city's perspective, where the city will get in trouble is if the city starts making decisions based on how we're treating homeless people as opposed to how we're treating other people, right? And that's where the big lawsuit on the Grants Pass that just came through was successful, because the attorney showed all the minutes from all the meetings where everybody said, well, what do we do to get rid of the homeless problem? What do we do to get rid of the homeless people in town? Well, let's pass this law and then we can do that. And let's find this area and we'll move them over there. That way they're not in town anymore. We can get rid of them. And when those comments are made, it was very, very clear that the intent was to get rid of homeless people and not have a place for them. And again, the Constitution says you have to have a place for people to spend a night to get rest. And so that's what we're looking to do, is get compliant with state law. We don't need the lawsuit on top of everything else. We don't need a lawsuit from an attorney who says my client was in Philomath, they wanted to sleep, and your officers moved them out of the way. Didn't they give them an alternative place to stay? Currently, that's against the law, right? And that would be a lawsuit, and we wouldn't be able to defend it unless we said, no, the officer did have a place to stay. They offered a place to stay at 14th and Main. They refused the place to stay and they left. You have an established place, 14th and Main, yes, we have a policy, 14th and Main, or other place as designated by city staff, et cetera, et cetera. So we're just trying to get a spot where we can defend ourselves.
And it may not work in that spot. I mean, I think that's why I recommend that you give some flexibility to the city manager to say, okay, let's try this spot. And if some bad stuff happens and we don't like it, we'll move it over here. And then I'll go into Chris and say, this 14th, the main thing is not working. In the morning, here's why people are honking, they're antagonizing, whatever. making stuff up, but
Attacking the building next door all the time.
whatever, or who
I
knows?
will.
Nobody, no matter, there's no place that we own that's the perfect spot that's not gonna be near a neighborhood, near a school. All the parks, except for this one, are near schools and where kids are walking every day and all that stuff. So, I mean, I just want you guys to know, I understand the situation. I'm being a jerk because that's what you pay me to do. I'm giving you the reality of it, which bothers me, and I bring it up every time we talk about any new law. And it's like the mushroom thing, like okay, let's pass this mushroom thing. Everybody, oh, it's great. Let's have a mushroom place where people can go. But the state never thinks it through on the law enforcement part, which is, what if the person goes in and gets high and he doesn't want to leave? How do we kick him out? Is he trespassing? What if he walks out and says, I'm not staying, I'm getting in my car and driving away? Guess who they're calling? They're calling us.
Yeah.
Now we're dealing with a guy that's high on mushrooms, and we're doing a DUI investigation or a trespassing or an assault, and they just don't take into effect the unintended consequences. The program sounds great on paper, but then when you peel back the layer of who's waking up the homeless guy at 8 o'clock in the morning to move him off the city property? Who's going to do it? Is it going to be a public works guy?
She volunteered right there.
She did. She's volunteering. Ruth Causey. Thank you, Ruth. No, it's just not. It sounds like
Ruth by herself.
I don't want to go overboard and make it sound like I'm whiny, but I'm just telling you. I mean, your daughter's about. Okay,
I know, I
ask her.
respect everything you do.
I know.
I also agree that all of this is making more work for you.
Yeah.
And you've
It's
got
not-
enough
it's not-
on your
but
plate
it's-
to start with.
And I know, and it's not the work part that bothers
No, no,
me.
no.
It's what we're doing with city money when we should be doing something else. And that's what bothers me more than anything else. That's why Corvallis has got to the point where they're hiring, they have to fund these positions to do this every day. And
Where's that funding coming from?
yeah, exactly.
They passed a new
that's 5
monthly
cops
bill
that aren't doing other.
for all
Corvallis's
residents.
crime, look at the state, look at the numbers. And a lot of it is because of these folks that are in town doing the shoplifting and all the different things. Corvallis PD doesn't even go to Home Depot or take reports for shoplifting anymore. That's how bad it is. Because I caught a shoplifter 2 weeks ago that lives in Philomath, and we caught him stealing a $1,000 welder. And I went in to report it, and luckily I knew where the guy lived, and we had one of my officers arrest the guy when he got home with his welder. But Corvallis PD did not want to come take a report because it's so widespread there that we get back to the whole, why are we doing policing in a small town? Why do we have why don't we just go to the county, just have 2 sheriff's deputies patrol here, every once in a while? This is why, because we want a nice small town where we can have our kids go in parks and walk to school and not worry about crime. Where over there, they're not even sending cops to take a standard shoplifting report at a large business in their town.
Eugene doesn't.
I know, and that's why Portland's losing the Walmarts, and they just lost REI today. They're going to lose Columbia, is because the same reason. I'm beating a dead drum here.
As a small municipality, the most important service we can provide the public is public safety. It's the most important thing.
I think it is.
Our
Of course,
roads could do
I'm
it a
biased.
lot, but if we're not providing good public
And that's why you
safety-
guys are sitting on this committee too, because you care about it. And I'm just giving you my view. I'm totally slanted. You guys have to make tough decisions on the city council, but from Dave and I's view, we're looking at it from how do we provide the best police services. And when we talk about these issues, we're going to have to do it. The state's going to pass it. We're just trying to do it the most efficient way and trying to figure out a way to do it so it doesn't become an ongoing problem for us. And then we're getting into this a year from now. Oh, your use of force has gone up. Why is this going on, Ken? So I just want to go on record that I'm against all this. But anyway, anything else about this topic?
I think as a member of this committee, I'm comfortable recommending the 14th and Main site. But I think you're absolutely right. We do have to be prepared for objections from the businesses. And I think we also have to be prepared with alternatives and pros and cons of each. The 20th and Main, the disadvantages are pretty obvious. I like many of the things about your idea about the area south of PCS, but something would have to be, an investment would have to be made there to make it suitable.
Mhm.
And I think all of the disadvantages you bring up are real. So that would be my recommendation for what we take to the council would be this appears to be the best alternative. These are the responses we expect. These are a couple of alternative sites, but here's what would be involved.
I think including in that would be some flexibility.
Mhm,
You
I
have to
think
be
it's
able to
good.
make some
Yeah.
choices based on experience as the process proceeds.
Mhm.
But this isn't working, we have to have some flexibility in that to make those quick last minute decisions of
Mhm.
this isn't working, but we can't wait a month till this. But giving maybe our city manager some power
Yes.
into having,
Yeah.
making some
He's got to have
decisions.
the ability to move.
Yeah, I
those
think if you lock
decisions.
Chris into a spot, I mean, it
Yes.
takes away overflow issues. If we
Right,
have, let's say we
right.
have some kind of a natural disaster or a flood and things are happening, we're gonna have to provide,
Right,
or maybe outreach to some churches to take overflow if something bad happens. There's a lot of other things that are come to play here, but I think
Right.
the key is having some flexibility in the assignment of the locations. And
right.
you could put them in order, or you could do whatever you
Right.
want, the 14th and then 20th, and then city parks as a last thing. That's the only other city property that I know of.
I think for the intent of the program, which is what this would be, the intent of the program, you're just as well to not advertise where it's going to be,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
Yes.
The police are the ones that really need to know
That's right.
where it's going to be, because if they're the ones that are going to get the call, they're the ones that are going to call somebody, and all they need to know is where is it we're putting people tonight?
Right,
Where do we refer people to tonight? And
Yep.
that can change.
Right.
And if you start promoting it, putting signs up and all that, you're just doing that. Now we're starting to invite, right? And the
Yeah.
intent isn't to invite. The intent is you're already here sleeping. We're just giving you an alternative place where you can
Yeah.
go. We're not inviting you to come and sleep here tonight. You're already here sleeping. We're just giving you an alternative place.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and I think, Diane, you're right. I mean, we all care about this, but I think each city and municipality, you gotta phrase everything in that. What is our city? What, our hearts are one thing, and what is our city responsible for? If we are now do we have the services here to invite 50 people here, or 40 people, or 30? Do we have mental health capacity? Do we have just actual medical capacity? We don't have a full-time fire department to deal with medical stuff here, let alone anything else. Do we have people to manage these people? Do we have people to transport back and forth? There's a lot of services that Corvallis has started, and nonprofits that operate in the city that make hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to manage these people. And that blows my mind. But, we all give money to food shares and all the different things. And, those are the right things to do. I've just cautioned you guys, just from the police standpoint, that's, the city of Philomath is our entity, and that's what we should be managing. I think if we go outside of that and we start inviting, and it becomes an inviting place, that's where it gets problematic. I understand your whole take, 100%, but
I don't want to go and said,
Yeah.
sorry, real quick, I'm just going to tell them that, I don't want to go and said that the city council in May will be looking at joining into the Hope Advisory Council and joining with Benton County and City of Corvallis to look at the homelessness issue, right? To partner with the nonprofits, to partner with these other agencies, to look at the groups and to look at, because homelessness isn't a Philomath issue, right? It's a larger issue than just Philomath. So I think from a city council policy standpoint, we're not just turning a blind eye to this, and we're not just pushing this off to the side. I think the council is on one side saying, we're going to meet minimum requirements for what we need to do to comply with the state, but we're also going to step beyond that, right? We don't need to join this council with Benton County and City of Corvallis. The council's choosing to look to do that, and I think they most likely will, based on the conversations that were had at the last meeting. I think we will agree to sign on to there, and that's going to be commitment from staff and council members to go to those meetings and look for opportunities that we can really look to find solutions to this problem, not just continue to, provide food, provide shelter, and just have it kind of ongoing, that we're actually looking to help people get out of these situations and get out of the crisis that they find themselves in. So I do think it's commendable. I don't think, again, I don't want to completely repeat what I just said, but I want the committee to take comfort in knowing that we're not ignoring this problem, minimizing it. But when it comes to providing services to individuals, we're not set up to do that, and nor are we expected to, and nor should you feel guilty for not being able to do that as a city. We're going to do what we can do as a small city of 5,000 people. And we shouldn't be expected to do it anymore. We can't run faster than we can run, right?
I'm just wondering if how the other committee members would feel about meeting with our religious leaders and talking to them about allowing people to use their parking lots, see if there's any interest or.
And I think what we need, I mean, even stepping back from that, what we need really is a town hall. We need somewhere for people to come and really state, this is what I see, this is what I think we can do as a community. If there's outside of city perimeters, not perimeters, but what the city's responsible for, what do we want to do as a community? What are some things that, whether it's the churches, whether it's organizations, service organizations within our town, we need to have a chance for them to have a voice and what they see, their vision of how they can be of help. So I definitely agree in talking to the churches and other organizations and maybe joining hands to see what we need to do. But I think there are limited resources available from the city, and what the city's responsibility, what we're able to do as a city is very limited in a city of 5,000 with a budget that is not equal to Corvallis or Albany in regards to public safety.
All right.
I think a town hall could be pretty contentious because there are very strong feelings on both sides. And depending on who shows up, it could be, we may need a police presence.
But I think good choices, good decisions are based on good information. And I think everyone wants to have their voice heard and feel that they have some input into something as large as this. I think it's, I don't know if I feel right about saying that, I mean, yes, we'll do what we need to for compliance, but over and beyond that, we need to have some input. We need to have their voices be heard and to know what, and to let them have, maybe they need to hear another voice, have a balanced voice of community services and public safety voices. Maybe we need to have a variety of voices heard at that town hall so that there's a balance of what individuals face. I do one thing, I face one group of homeless at the community dinners that I serve at, and maybe the ones that public service and safety individuals face are a different clientele completely. Maybe that is true, but I think we need to have a right to voice our thoughts and see what we can do to contribute and help.
It's not a one size fits all.
No,
everybody.
it's definitely not. It's definitely not. All right, so.
I can get the rest done in like 5 minutes.
Good.
Okay, so personnel update, I can't go into the details. I did it before we started the recording, but we lost one officer during training of our 2 new recruits. The second recruit starts the academy on May 15th. We had one person pass all the testing today and told him we're giving him a job offer. So we're giving him his conditional job offer, starting his background tomorrow, which takes about a month. The earliest we could get him in, what's the next last, you looked up?
September has 12 openings.
So that's the earliest next
That's
one.
horrible.
I know. And so that's just the life we live right now on the hiring side, but it is. So on the second part of it, everybody knows that Shelley's retiring, and we went through a great process of 15 applicants, and we've hired a really strong candidate. We had 2 that was like almost impossible to pick between, which is where you want to be, right? But it's sad because you got to tell the second person. But we've got a job offer to a woman named Katie Miller. They just moved, her and her husband just moved here from Lacey, Washington. She was a dispatcher and a office manager, supervisor, like what Shelley does now, but has dispatch experience on top of that. Glowing reviews from her bosses and coworkers. They moved here. Her husband was a Washington State patrol officer, just got hired by the Oregon State Police, and they live in Junction City. Our planned start date for her is May the 9th. If all the background goes quickly, which it should. So that's great news. And I'll get with everybody when we decide what we're going to do with Shelley's going away. Because was she 17 years?
I think real close, yeah.
17 years. And you guys know the backstory there, unfortunately. But it's a tough position to fill, but because that job is very unique. And she's not just a clerk. She answers the phone. She deals with like 911 calls. She does all of our report writing stuff. She deals with the public coming in, good, bad, and ugly coming in the front door. It's a unique personality to be able to pull that all off and you can't hire just the one or the other. It's like it has to do. So we really took that into account during the process. got more candidates for that job than we do for our police job. I mean, which is sad, but I mean, there was probably 4 or 5 people in there that, I mean, excellent candidates. So that was great.
How is the new compliance officer?
He's doing great.
It's busy.
I'll say that he's working himself out of a job pretty quick.
You mean he's cleaned everything up?
Well, I mean, that's what,
I'm looking at it.
I mean, that's where it's headed. We're gonna have to talk about this in a couple months. I mean, there's not, at some point, he's not messing around.
He hasn't got my list yet.
There's 2 or 3 big project properties in town that are gonna be a lot more long-term, but if we're asking him to come in and work 4 hours twice a week, patrol around, at some point, we're gonna have to trim that back and talk about that. But, I mean, he's great. I'm gonna hire him as a cop at some point in the future, but hopefully everything works out. But he was a great ad, and he's not messing around. He's got through all the training, and he's out there doing his thing, doing door hangers, putting stickers on abandoned cars parked illegally and all that stuff. And it's really, it worked. It's
Can you
working.
do both jobs?
Huh?
Can you do both jobs?
Both jobs as of,
Be a compliant officer,
and
and when he has time, he's a patrol officer.
no, that's the whole, that,
I
see,
don't think
our whole point, because
part-time.
you weren't here for the original conversation about how this position was, if you've got tall weeds at your house, do you want the cops knocking on your door? And there's a lot of cities that have gone away from the, hi, police here, badge, why are you in my front yard? Well, you've got this old refrigerator down the side of your house, and either you're gonna move it or we're gonna give you a ticket. And it was like, that's part of the discussion was, you know, who do you want policing that? You know, the public nuisance kind of things. Every city around here that I know has a civilian officer that does that. And the larger cities in the county have animal control and property, you know, in municipal.
We also provided Coulter a little less training than what we have to.
Of course,
Sure,
yeah.
For all that.
We did it before, jokingly, we did it
He
before.
could be that in the morning
No,
and.
do that. We'd
Yeah.
hire somebody else to fill the.
Yeah, I think, you know, we could talk about it later, but
Is
it's,
a school bus in your yard?
yeah,
Compliant?
interesting you brought that particular spot up. We were just talking about that. That's a project.
It
for
is?
us.
It's on the list.
Oh.
It's on the list. Yeah, that's a interesting location there. I
I
know.
had one next to my house for a while.
Well, do you know the other one? Do you know where the other one is? Right across from the
Oh, I
school?
do.
Okay,
I do.
okay. That's an
I know
ongoing.
them too.
All right, so filling that, chili cook-off, just real quick, public outreach. Chili cook-off, we've already got 17 teams signed up, which is great.
When is it?
It's September the 10th this year. And we'll fill those other spots because there's places like, let's see, Frolic signed up. La Raquita just signed up yesterday. We haven't, huh?
Good.
Yeah, they just signed up.
Yeah.
She calls, it's Julie. I said, you haven't signed up? She goes, what? I didn't get the email. Well, I found the email that she got and she signed up. So, so that's going on. We have Coffee with a Cop coming up next week on the 26th. Is it 26th or 23rd?
Where is it?
Citizens Bank. What day is today? Today's the 18th? 20th, 21st? I think it's next Wednesday.
That's
Yeah, a bunch of stuff going
26th,
next.
that's a 26th.
That's 26th.
Yep.
26th. Next Wednesday, 8 o'clock. And there will be donuts
What time?
at 8 to 10.
I'm working. next-
Well, so what? Take a couple minutes and come have a donut with us.
Coffee break.
Kids, teach yourself.
Hey,
I'll be right back.
they'll be there when you come back. They'll be there when you get back.
Some.
Yeah, some will be there when you get back.
First grade student.
And lastly, I'll email you guys a copy. We passed our accreditation. We got our award last week. I got the final report. No bad. We didn't even get a, hey, you should improve this one little thing. We didn't even get a single bad mark on our whole report. So we're required to post this on our website, but I'll send you guys an email if you want to dig in a little bit. What you'll see in here, just a quick review of what they do every year, is they pick out at random like 10 things that they do in-depth inspections on, and about 10 or 12 policy reviews that they do. And then they do those to all the police agencies that are being reviewed that year, in addition to all the other standards that we have to pass, if you guys have been through my little spiel. So what you see them talking about are those ones that they've highlighted as the ones that they're focusing on that year. So if you wonder why they're talking about use of force, annual reporting and those things, those are ones that they've picked out. And they always pick out some big ones. Use of force reporting, citizens complaints, pursuit policy, those kind of things. Personnel, are you firing, hiring? How are you hiring? How are you firing? All those things, and they go through those with a little bit more of a fine-tooth comb. But they pick out those topics every year, and they're different topics every year. So something like safety equipment, firearms training, advanced training, criminal investigations. So it just depends on what they're looking at that year. But we got a great review.
Tim, was that the only award that we got last week? Was there another one?
Was there another
We
award?
want to hear all about it.
Come on,
What was
thanks,
that other
Dave.
award?
Yeah, of course.
Something.
Yeah, what was it, Dave? You should
Maybe
share it.
Dave could tell us.
Yeah, I'm sure I could.
I just have to
I
have
just
my
might
40
happen to
minute
have it.
speech here.
Good, thank you.
Let's take a look. What I can find.
Any embarrassing pictures to go along with
I
that?
don't have any embarrassing pictures.
Oh, doggone it.
So this was the President's Award from the Oregon Association of Chiefs of Police at the annual conference. It says, in recognition of your unwavering commitment to the Oregon Association of Chiefs of Police and your leadership in promoting the continued professionalism of the public safety profession. Your passion and advocacy is not only heard but felt throughout the state of Oregon, and you have,
Interesting.
I'm going to cry in just a second.
and you have represented
Oh.
us all with integrity and honor.
Oh.
Dave?
Thank you, Dave. That was good. That
Yep.
was very much needed and very well
No,
deserved.
thank you. Appreciate it.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
That is a good thing.
That is going to find its way into the city newsletter.
I would love
and
that. That would
Brad
be great.
Fuqua has already been tipped and everything, so we'll
Oh.
hype that up. Well deserved.
Thank you.
I've congratulated
Yes.
Ken.
Absolutely.
Personally, I'll do it publicly as well. Very well deserved, nice accolades, and yeah, we're very fortunate to have Ken and recognize that every single day that we get to work with them. He's just a great police chief and an even better person, and it's nice to, this is a statewide recognition of all the police chiefs in all of Oregon. To be recognized is really something. So, and he's here in Philomath, which says a lot about him as well. So anyway, congratulations
Thank
on
you.
the award, and thank you.
Couldn't do it without, I hire good people and I have good people running the shop. And that's Dave. And I just stand back and take the credit. So it's great. Makes me feel good.
Forgive me for asking, but I heard reference to Chief Art. What is your title right now?
Lieutenant.
But you are on your way?
Working
Has
my
that
way,
decision
yes.
made? Working my way.
Working
That's a
my
good
way.
answer.
I'll just say this, it was disturbing at the last Chiefs conference, because if your city manager doesn't do the right thing, he's gonna get snatched away by some other police chief.
Oh, my gosh.
So,
No,
I have
heard
to,
it
we go to these
in
things,
another
and we
spot
have
too,
second,
so-
we have what they call second commands, which are watch commanders. That's what Dave does. He actually runs the department, the actual operations, and it's ridiculous at these Chiefs conference, because everybody's looking for people, good people to steal away from small agencies, and it's, Dave gets a lot of
A lot of free meals.
eyeballs and glancing, oh, hey, I'd love to steal Dave from you, those kind of comments. So, I mean, we could talk all day, but it's you're a good police chief when you hire good people and have good people running the department and working for you. That's your job, is to hire good people to do the job in the town. That's and train them and do all those things. And that's what Dave does so well. And that's what we take a lot of pride in. So,
And as a 26-year resident of Philomath, I have great respect for our police officers.
Yeah.
And it is wonderful to live in a community where we feel safe, where we feel that there are honest men of integrity that wear a badge that really honor what that represents. And I speak for myself and our family. We thank you.
well, we appreciate
For the
that.
years that
Thank
we've
you.
been
Well,
here,
we're all a
it
team,
means a lot.
all of us. And that's why these committees, that's why we have these conversations. That's why the city is so important to us. And that's why I feel bad when I talk about other things like we were talking about earlier. But I have to give you this, what I believe is the honest scoop of what's out there and what we're going to be confronted with. Not that we're not going to do it, we're going to do it, and we're going to work together to do all those things. But those are difficult situations and difficult topics, and decisions have to be made. But I think from day one working with Chris and I and Dave, I think you'd be doing a disservice if we didn't tell you guys the truth of what we think is happening and why it's happening and what the ramifications are about making certain decisions and laws that affect our city, because you don't want to hear lip service from me. I mean, now you guys go make your decisions, but I want you to hear factual information from us, and that's what we're here for. And all this stuff that I've said, I mean, everything that we deal with is all on paper. We provide data and things to you, and that's really important as we move forward. So that's all I have. Thank you for the kind words. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, if there's nothing further, or is there anything further we need to discuss?
I think so.
If not, we will adjourn this meeting.
Right, great.